Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy Segment Show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. The Riverside and Great Northern Railroad is located on N115 County Road North in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, and is open if you check the web for the operating schedule. The railroad line is at 15-inch gauge, also known as grand scale. The line operates between Hyde Park and Western Springs near downtown Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. The railroad was started in the 1940s under the operation of Sandley Locomotive Works and was originally located in Janesville, Wisconsin. In the 1940s, the organization began. Also, Janesville is where Elmer Sandley thought about building a 15-inch gauge railroad for everyone to enjoy, and the city administrators approved a 10-year lease on a 2-mile right-of-way along the Rock River from Riverside Park to Mercy Hospital. In 1947 to 1948, every hobbyist in the neighborhood came to help lay the park while Elmer was busily working on building locomotives and cars. In 1949, the first ride was given. Then in 1952, the organization relocated to the former right-of-way, the La Crosse and Milwaukee Railroad, which the line opened between its namesake cities in 1958. Then, in 1874, it was merged to become part of the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad. Then it was abandoned in favor of the route with a smoother grade in 500 feet back in 1952. In 1981, the Sandley Light Railway Equipment Works went bankrupt, and the site and Wisconsin Dells was where Sandley Locomotive Works was located. And the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad was moved to this very location. In 1980, it was the final season of operation under the Sandley management. The Sandley Light Railway Equipment Works filed for bankruptcy in 1981. Then, in 1982, following Elmer Sandley's death, the roadbed was dormant. Then nature took over the railroad, and then volunteers spent most of 1988 to 1989 to get it ready for operation again. However, fans of the Sandley-built trains and the Riverside and Great Northern Railway established the Riverside and Great Northern Preservation Society to assume the mortgage and management of the railroad as a living museum tourist attraction, and the society was soon under new management and was back in operation. In 2004, the Riverside Canyon Bridge was washed out after a series of heavy rain and water flooded the canyon. Then, with the assistance from the government and private resources, a trestle bridge was built starting in 2005 till 2006, and the main line was reconnected once again. Today, the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad attracts visitors from around the globe, and people even go for train rides on board as well. Also, going alongside the 15-inch scale railroad is a railroad line where Canadian Pacific Kansas City freight traffic travels over, and even Amtrak's Empire Builder passenger train travels over the line as well. And the passenger train stops in Wisconsin Dells twice a day, with one heading towards Seattle, Washington, and Portland, Oregon, and one heading toward Chicago, Illinois as well. Also, that line used to belong to the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad till merged to the Soo Line in 1986, and the Soo Line would then merge into the Canadian Pacific Railroad as well. Then, in the year 2023, it would be merging with the Kansas City Southern to become what is known as the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Railroad, and Also, the Wisconsin Great Northern Railroad keeps operating for years to come as well.
What you see right behind me is Riverside and Great Northern 82.
Riverside and Great Northern 82 was built by Sandley Locomotive Works in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin in 1957 and is a 440 American type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named L.W. Nieman. It was originally purchased by the Milwaukee County Zoo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The locomotive was built to run on 15-inch scale tracks. In the 1980s, it was traded to the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad for a diesel locomotive that one of the members of the organization built, which the locomotive was not powerful enough to haul the longer trains at the Milwaukee County Zoo as well. It then arrived at the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. It would then receive an overhaul and received a new boiler. It was eventually back in operation and debuted on the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad. Today it is preserved here at the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad, and sometimes it operates on the tracks as well.
Right here is car 1210, which of course was built for here at the Riverside and Great Northern and would eventually end up at the Quinsippy place and then would eventually make its way back here when it was repurchased by Riverside and Great Northern. Also, it's named Reservoir Park. Okay, right here is car 1202 named the South Park, and it was built for the Riverside and Great Northern and would eventually be sold to Quinsippy's place and then would come back here. And it was, this side is where its roots were, and now here it is today. Here is car 1208, the Progress Park, and also this car was built specifically for Riverside and Great Northern till would eventually come back, till would eventually go to Quinsippy's train place and or wherever it went there, and would eventually make its way back here to the Riverside and Great Northern, where it lives and runs on these tracks as well. You could see right behind me is car 1201, which was built here, and it was built for the Riverside and Great Northern, and would also end up in Quinsippy eventually, and then would eventually be re-owned by Wisconsin Great Northern. Also, it is named Riverview Park, and it even rolls on these tracks as well, and people even sit in these seats to go for a ride. What you see right here is car 1209, and it was built for here and would eventually end up at Quinsippy, and then it would then eventually find itself back here again. And also it's named Washington Park, and it also rolls on these tracks as well when people are riding the train. What you see right behind me is Riverside and Great Northern 55.
Riverside and Great Northern 55 was built by the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad member Tom Artsberger in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin in 1995, and is an NW2 type diesel locomotive. This locomotive is modeled after an NW2 type diesel locomotive, and also it is painted in the CP rail livery and has the letterings as well. Also, this locomotive has always operated on these tracks. It was originally numbered 95, then at one point it was renumbered 5. Then in the 2010s it was renumbered 55 and was given the Canadian Pacific livery as well. The number change from 95 was to prevent confusion with one of the steam locomotives on the railroad as well. Today, this locomotive often operates on the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, and mainly it is used as a backup locomotive also. It is even used to move equipment around as well.
What you see right behind me is Riverside and Great Northern 1916.
Riverside in Great Northern 1916 was built by Sandley Light Railway Works in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin in 1961 and is a 442 Atlantic type steam locomotive. It was originally built for the Milwaukee County Zoo in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where it spent many years hauling people around the zoo. Also, it did carry this number when it was owned by the zoo. It was even named Harry J. Grant when it worked there. In 2023, it was then purchased by the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. Also, the zoo train decided to discontinue steam operations there, and the locomotive and tender were loaded onto trailers and was transported to the new home. It then arrived on the grounds. It was then relettered Riverside and Great Northern, and the name was eliminated from the locomotive as well. It then debuted on the railroad. Today, it is preserved here at the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, where it is today, and it also operates on the tracks as well.
This is car 307, which has been built around here by the Sandley Locomotive Works, and it was supposed to be part of the Brookfield Zoo, but it never made it there. It would also eventually find its way here, back at where its roots are. And here it is today, and also operates on these tracks. You can see right here is car 306. It was built around in this area, and it was also going to be used for the Brookfield Zoo, but never made it there. And it eventually made its way here. Now here it is today, and operating every day at the Wisconsin Riverside and Great Northern Railroad. Okay, you can see behind me, this is car 308 that was built around here years ago, and it was going to be used for the Brookfield Zoo train, but this car was never delivered. So it eventually made its way into the car roster of the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad. And here it is today. You could see right behind me, this is car 201. It was built on this very site. And also it was built for this location as well, and has always been. And also it is still running as it still is today, and has been in good shape for years. You can see this flat car right here, number 416. I think it was built here at the Riverside and Great Northern site at the Sandley shops here in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. And also this car right here, they use to carry materials, likely when they're doing track work. And this car was built in 1969. You can see right here is a ballast hopper, which they use to lay ballast on the rails, and this car is now here. This car, I think, has been here for ages, and also they use it to lay new ballast on the tracks. And also this is part of the maintenance department. Also, I think the Sandley built this car. You can see this is like a car to carry coal out of mines, but this is a replica of it. It looks like this one was built in 2021, I believe, because according to that, 1021, and it may have been built here, and now here it is today at Riverside and Great Northern. What you see right behind me is Riverside and Great Northern 1.
Riverside and Great Northern 1 was built by Sandley Locomotive Works in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin in 1947, and is an 040 VB vertical boiler type steam locomotive. Also, the locomotive is named Tom Thumb. This locomotive resembles the original Tom Thumb built by Peter Cooper in 1830 for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. This locomotive was built new for the Riverside and Great Northern Railroad, and it can only pull a small amount of cars on the railroad as well.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video screen. And also, if you didn't give my Facebook page a like yet, here's where you'll want to go. And if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you'll want to go as well. Also, be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. The link is in the description box below, along with the Facebook and Instagram pages. And remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Sign now until next time. All aboard.